Hey everyone, I am your fave nurse B. Thanks for coming back to my channel. In today's video, I am doing an interview with a family nurse practitioner by the name of Victoria. She also has a YouTube channel called The Secret Cocktail where she shows you all how to start and manage your own CNA school. So go check out her channel. In this video, we're going to be talking about what school was like for her. She gives an example of a day in a life for a nurse practitioner. She talks about how some jobs will hire you and try to make you work as a nurse and a nurse practitioner. And she also talks about the difference between PA and nurse practitioners, collaborating with MDs, and then also her idea of oversaturation for PAs. So definitely make sure that you watch this video and go check out part 1. Now everyone wants to know, how hard was school? Which I know that's so freaking relative, but you only, because your daughter's 2, right? Mm-hmm. Your youngest is 2, so but you still had children while you were in school, and were you working full time? Like, can you tell us more about like when you were in school, how that looked for you?
When I was in school, I had to work part-time. And again, I don't learn easily. Like, I'm not what they say, the sharpest crayon in the box. That's the way I think. So like, I have to teach myself something like 4 times before I finally get it. So for me, like, there was no way I could work full time, period. So I had to go part-time, which was good. You know, as a nurse, you have that flexibility to do that. So it was easy for me to get a part-time job, which was part-time burn ICU. And then it took up so much of my time. Like, oh my God, on my off days, I was staying in the books. The pathophysiology that we think we know as a nurse, I'm here to tell you there is a whole new level of pathophysiology that you didn't know existed. So that was enlightening. Like, I remember one night studying and I was like, oh my God, like, I have so much respect for physicians now. And I can't even explain to you the amount of respect that I have for them. And now I do recognize that although I'm a nurse practitioner, I mean, yeah, I don't have the level of expertise they do in everything. You know, I do have a knowledge that's a little bit above basic, I would think, but I still understand and recognize that there's so much more, y'all. There is so much more. So it was hard. It was definitely hard, but it was all worth it.
So can you give us just like a typical day in a life? Like, can you tell us the setting you were in as a nurse practitioner and just kind of how the flow of that day was?
Well, I was trained family practice. So technically I was trained to, you know, manage like diabetes, hypertension, and, you know, whatever else. But my very first job ended up being urgent care. So with urgent care, it's kind of like ER, like wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. So that was a mindset change for me because I was so used to saying, oh, you come in, your blood pressure is 160 over 90. I've got to do something about it, right? So let me start doing labs and let me do blood work and let me find out about your family history and, you know, let me do all these things to see if we need to get you started on hypertension medications. That was the mind frame as an NP in family practice. But then in urgent care, it was like, oh, you 160 over 90? All right, make sure you follow with your doctor on that. But anyway, about your sinusitis, take this augmentin and you'll be good. You know, so it was like, whoa, I don't have to manage that. So it was a brain shift, and I'm already shifting from RN to NP brain. Now I'm shifting on, I don't have to manage all of your problems. I'm really worried more about what you came in for, unless that is a true problem, like you're getting ready to go into a hypertensive crisis, then that's a different discussion. But, you know, if you're just a little elevated because you didn't take your medication this morning or whatever, I don't have to do anything about it. So that was a mind shift. The day in the life is you are seeing, like, it's real. Every 15 minutes, you're seeing patients every 15 minutes. And you have to learn as much as you can about them in that 15 minutes. You've got to hear about their sisters, brothers, aunties, and all of that in those 15 minutes. You've got to think about how you're going to treat them and all of their other issues that they have in those 15 minutes. And then you got to document when you're done. So it can be a lot if you don't learn how to organize and prioritize yourself. But as nurses, we're masters of that. So I think that I was able to transit. As a nurse, I was super organized anyway. So it was easy for me to transition and just be a little bit more organized. But that every 15-minute stuff, so now I shut up. Like, when I'm waiting for the doctor or the nurse practitioner and I'm out there for 30, 45 minutes, I shut up because I know what's going on back there now.
seems like what you're saying is that you have to continue to adjust and transition. Similar like in nursing school, how they just throw you a curveball. Oh, you don't have an instructor in this class anymore, and you got to still adjust to it. Or we lost this clinical site, and you have to still be able to adjust to. I think the biggest thing that people need to realize is that you have to be flexible and you have to be willing to switch things up in healthcare. But I think a lot of people, they get stuck on things being a certain way.
Yeah. And because, I mean, it's ever changing. There's always things going on differently. Another environment I ended up leaving when I left the every 15-minute environment and I went to like a private practice that had their own urgent care. And so they did things a little differently. But then in that urgent care setting, I didn't have like a medical assistant. And I didn't have...
That's what I want to ask you about. So everything was on you?
Yeah, so you will have places out there, because I work for 2 organizations now that think they got a 2-for-1 when they hire an MP.
Right.
So you've got to, and then they think they're going to pay you half of what they pay the physician for 2-for-1. So you have to be able to lay your foot down and say, you know. So the next 2 places I worked for, they did not have medical assistants. And it was, oh, well, you know how to do vital signs. You know how to give shots. You know how to draw blood. So you can do all that.
You were doing all of that?
Yes. So there was an organization I was working for, and they hired me on. And to your point, I did the intake. At one point, they even had me doing the insurance, girl. I said, now this is too much. Now you want me to process the insurance, bring them back to the room, and then walk back in and say, oh, by the way, I know you probably thought I was the secretary, but I'm actually the nurse practitioner.
Right.
Like, how ghetto is that? But they had me doing that. And this was not like, this particular place was not a private practice. This was a very large organization that had me doing this, by the way. But them and the private practice both had me doing the intake, doing the vital signs, ordering the medications, and then actually administering them. Like if I had to give them an IM injection of dexamethasone or whatever, wanted me to do that. And then doing the exiting education and their follow-up and all of that. So I'm not doing that in 15 minutes. So don't ask me.
I was about to say, so how long did that take? That doesn't seem smart on their end.
So we ended up talking them into designating 30 to 45 minutes for each visit. So 30 minutes for all of that, and then like 10 to 15 minutes to document or whatever, clean up. And then that's the other thing, they want you to clean up too, clean the bed down and bring the next patient in.
Girl, dang. So that's something to think about too when you're looking for a job, is to really ask those questions and to know if you're going to have that support staff.
Yeah. Am I going to have an MA, or am I going to have a nurse, or, you know, what, because I'm telling you what those MAs and nurses do, it is a lot, you know, and it gives you time though to, like, usually when my MA is doing that, I'm reading in the chart from the patient's last visits to get a feel for them and what's been going on with them. Right. So when I get in there, I'm not going in there blind, and I know what's going on.
Right.
When I walk back out, the MA is doing the cleaning of the room and doing whatever while I'm charting. Okay. When I got to do it all, when can I do any of that? I can't.
Right. That's why I say it doesn't seem smart. They're not utilizing you in the way that you're supposed to be, you know,
right.
used for.
But what I'm going to tell you guys is that a lot of jobs are doing that. Like a lot of positions you're going to apply for, they may, again, think that they got a 2-for-1 in a nurse practitioner. Both.
I didn't even think about it. I've never even heard anybody say that.
And they can't do that with physician assistants. They can't do that because physician assistants don't know how to give injections and draw blood and stuff. They don't. Nope. I worked with a physician assistant that had ordered dexamethasone or whatever, and the nurse was gone. And they were like, well, I need somebody to give this. And everyone looks at me. Of course, I did it for the patient, but it was like, wow, like that was an eye-opening moment. Physician assistants can't even do a lot of those things either, but nurses can.
Didn't even know that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were never trained. Think about it. Physician assistants were never trained. Like they never worked as a nurse like we did. So they never were trained to draw blood.
The clinical.
Yeah. I mean, unless it's one that's like acute care in physician assistant, maybe, but just ones that are outpatient, they never learn that stuff.
So someone asked, can you still work bedside as a bedside nurse in a hospital if you have your NP degree?
I've seen NPs do it. Yes. I wouldn't suggest it because, again, you can find yourself in a position where you're going to want to do things and make executive decisions and you can't. So it's kind of like, because you're working as an RN, but you're mentally trying to use your NP degree and license and you can't. So it's kind of hard. But yes, nurses have done it. It can be done. It's no one's to say you can't, but I would caution against it.
Right, because it's kind of like a blurry. It gets real blurry.
Yep. Yeah. You could potentially put your license at jeopardy either way.
So don't double dip. Don't double dip. Okay. So what about on the other end? I know you said once you had that 1 year of experience, it was easier to get a job. So what about on the other end where people say it's oversaturated? Do you, in your experience, have you seen it like that?
Nope.
Okay.
I have not seen an oversaturation at all. I think that people don't know what to do with NPs still. I was the first NP in my practice. My very first NP job, I was the first NP in the practice. They didn't know what to do with me. They didn't know what I could do. They didn't know what I couldn't do. And this was just 5 years ago, y'all. 5 years ago. So I had to teach them about what I can do and what I couldn't do. So I think that when we think about this oversaturation, it exists because there's NPs out there looking for jobs, but people don't know how to use NPs properly. Example would be the fact that we can practice to the highest level of our degrees, meaning we don't even need physicians in many states. There's some states we still need physicians to collaborate with in order for us to practice, but technically we don't. So in Georgia, like only one physician can have 4 NPs under them. So if there's if there's 8 NPs, they can't all work because you need a physician in order for you to work. Does that make sense? You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the collaborating portion is causing a barrier. And meanwhile, there's lots of people that need care.
Right. I know here in Missouri, you can't perform on your own, but in some areas, can't you have your own clinic as an NP?
Yep. Yeah. A friend of mine, she has a practice out in Maryland. They don't need a physician at all. They just open up a practice and they practice. So yeah, it depends on what state you're in. Here, I could open up a practice, but I have to have a physician to collaborate with.
Okay. That's the politics of it all.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. It's politics. They, and when we say collaborative, let me clear that up too. A collaborating physician is somebody you are literally paying in order to practice.
Say it again.
A collaborating physician is somebody that you are literally paying in order to practice. In my state, they review 10% of your charts. So if I saw 10 patients, they're going to see 1 chart just to make sure I'm doing things appropriately. But for the most part, I'm paying them just to practice, which is actually crazy.
So wait, how does that work?
Well, whatever agreement we have. So the law says I have to have a physician in order to practice. But the physician says, well, if you want me to practice, you're going to have to come about them coins. I need $1,000 a month. Or
so you coordinate that yourself?
Yes.
Like, how does that look, that process?
We coordinate that ourselves, or you could have like a give and take relationship. So maybe if you're a physician and you have a practice, but you like to be off 1 week in a month, I'll come in to cover for you if you will be my collaborator for my practice. So we're giving tit for tat.
Oh, that's only if you have your own practice, like your own clinic or something like that. Okay.
So that's an example. Like if I have my own practice, I could, rather than giving a monetary, we can, exchange services.
That makes sense.
But it just depends on what you and that physician come up with. But for the most part, they want to get paid for your collaborative agreement.
That makes sense. I would want to get paid too.
Yep.